So hello everyone and welcome to the Product Intelligence Sync on the 21st of March 2023. I'm going to start this sync with the milestone kickoff. Sam is not here today because I think he has to watch the kids. And so I'm going to walk through everything. I hope I can do the whole milestone justice. But so don't hesitate to kind of interrupt me. I'm going to share my screen and the milestone issue. But yeah, if anything's unclear, then please just let me know. Right. Okay, can you see the issue? Is it readable? Or should I zoom in a bit more?
I would say it has good size now.
Okay. All right. So let's walk through 15.11. So this is the first time actually that I think both Jonas and Ankit count towards our overall capacity. So it's quite a bit. It's a bit higher than we normally have. Although Piotr is gone for nearly the whole milestone. I think the whole milestone actually. When it comes to the overall objectives, we still have like a bunch of different kind of tracks going on. One of them is to finish converting Jitsu to Snowplow. So to really then enable also the product analytics team to work with Snowplow instead of Jitsu, and hopefully we can get rid of Jitsu then also on their side until the end of the milestone. Then we have the documentation of a solution of the unified tracking API that can be socialized for feedback and iterated on. So that's, I think, something that mostly Jonas and Mikolai are working on right now. We want to support the data team around their next-gen data pipeline, which is mostly setting up a separate Snowplow pipeline. And the rest is mostly spent with technical debt, maintenance, and finishing up the whole epic around removing known events, which hopefully makes our future better. So that also, I think, is kind of shown in the features that we want to work on. There's a bunch of things that we are kind of carrying over from the last milestone. So there's one more issue around known events that I think Nico has already started on. We still have to make integrate the new Snowplow SDK into the internal handbook. That's kind of blocked by also updating Snowplow in the clusters. And then our all-time favorite, the Salesforce issue, which is an evergreen. Let's see if we can finish it up this milestone. So that's the main things that are still remaining from the last milestone. It's actually, I think, pretty good that we got most of the things done, although we had kind of a lot of things that we more had as kind of stretch goals. Then, as I said before, one big focus is to replace Jitsu with Snowplow in production. There's a bunch of issues which are either not at all estimated or not estimated right now, because if I'm going to take them over, they're not estimated because I'm also not counting to the capacity. And some of them we still have to estimate because they're kind of still in the phase of figuring out what exactly we need to do. And so this is all about, adding Snowplow and making it usable for product analytics. The plan there is to have Snowplow and Jitsu at the same time in the cluster. And then so that the analytics team is able to slowly start shifting things over. Jitsu will still work, and as soon as everything's switched over to Snowplow, then we can start removing Jitsu, which is probably something for the next milestone. The next thing I mentioned briefly before, I don't know if all of you have heard about this before, but the data team, as you might know, they have a copy of the database in Snowplow and Snowflake. Sorry, too many snow things. So a copy of the database in Snowflake that's, for example, also used for the automated service ping and other calculations that are made based on our production data. So the production data is carried over to Snowflake, our data warehouse. They're not satisfied with their current pipeline. It breaks too often and has too many issues. And so I think that was already probably roughly a year ago that the first exploration started in using Snowplow as a pipeline for streaming over database events. So kind of when someone creates a record, updates a record, removes a record, that these kinds of things get as events put into Snowplow, and then theoretically the data team can use them to recreate a database in Snowflake. And there's already been work and a first spike, I think, that's been done a year ago. And now they want to actually try it out, which means that we have to add a parallel Snowplow destination and also the first database events to send to that Snowplow destination. We overall decided that it would make more sense for them to have a separate pipeline and not use our current Snowplow pipeline, to make sure that our events and our event stream is not being disrupted because potentially sending database events can create quite a load. And so we want to keep this separate to make sure that our pipeline isn't affected. And yeah, so that also means that we need to set up a separate destination so that the monolith can send events to two different Snowplow destinations at once. Then we have the unified event tracking. I think Mikolai, you still need to assign yourself to that one. There we want to create prototypical documentation for the unified tracking API to have as a kind of prototype that we can share with other teams, ask them about their opinion, ask them how easy it would be for them to build events on top of that. But also internally, we can use that to give feedback. And the idea is that we can finish this up within this milestone and then hopefully already create the first issues around how do we migrate towards that and then work towards that starting with 16.0. Then we have two more epics also regarding the product analytics stack. One of them is regarding the JavaScript SDK. So that means we want to add actually tracking to the metrics dictionary, since that is not tracked at all right now, and it seems like a good project to try out the new JavaScript SDK. We want to integrate the Snowplow plugins with the JavaScript SDK and start recording page performance metrics. That's something we already do on our Snowplow implementation in the GitLab monolith, and we also want to add this as a default to the JavaScript SDK. And then we want to also start creating a Ruby SDK from scratch. This shouldn't be too hard because it's also like the JavaScript SDK. It should just be a wrapper around the SDK that Snowplow already provides. And that's broken up into creating the actually initial version of the SDK gem and then updating it so that it works the way we expect it to work with our pipeline and actually uploading it to Ruby gems as well. And then we have two more things to do. One is we want to define a Snowplow event removal process. I think that's still kind of not really documentation there is missing. We only have the event removal process around database and Redis metrics, not around Snowplow. And removing the usage of known events. As far as I know from Nico, that should also be doable. So the two other issues around known events are the ones up top. Those are things that we already started working on. So it's still quite should be achievable that we actually completely get rid of known events within the milestone. All right, so that's the feature list. I know that it's quite a bit, but we're also more people nowadays. Do you have any questions around those things? Right, if not, we can go on to the maintenance part. There we have as a leftover, but I think both are already being worked on, to removal tasks. Apart from that, we have a few update tasks around the version app. So updating Postgres, which is mostly an infrastructure issue. It's more kind of communication from our side. And then also upgrading version app to Ruby 3. Apart from that, the big thing is getting rid of usage data.rb. As far as I know, Nico already started adding more issues to that. In general, I think one thing to note there is we just want to get rid of usage data.rb, so it doesn't really matter which issue you want to tackle. Any issue is fair game. And I think most of these issues should be quite easy to kind of do in between other things. They shouldn't have any dependencies on, I don't know, communication or anything like that, because it's mostly just moving code out of the usage data.rb files and into instrumentation classes. It might be a bit repetitive, so I think it's a good thing if everyone carries their load and we can kind of distribute it a bit. So feel free to take any of those up. Again, it doesn't matter in which order they are completed. As long as usage data.rb gets smaller, I think we all can be happy. Still need to set up a tracker. I think we're something above 800 lines right now, and we can then start counting towards 0. Do we have any questions regarding the maintenance list? Do you miss anything?
I was just wondering how do we try to not step too much on each other's toes in usage data? Is that something Nico is managing, or do we just deal with that as merge conflicts?
So Nico is managing that in a sense. He already, so right now there's already, I think, 4 different issues created that shouldn't kind of conflict at all with each other. So it shouldn't be a problem to work on them simultaneously. That should be enough to cover like multiple people. And as soon as we get closer to, I don't know if that's not enough anymore, or we get closer to kind of doing those, then I think it's up to Nico to create more issues or coordinate the further work on it. But I think that should at least get us started and make sure that we don't, as long as people stick to those 4 in the beginning, there shouldn't be any chance on stepping on each other's toes.
Great.
Right. Then, unfortunately, we also have a few bugs that we need to take care of. The first one, I think, as far as I know, Mikolai, you now know a solution, and that's at least already in review, if not merged yet, for the missing number of metrics. Okay. Did you hear me, Mikolai? I'm not sure. Okay. All right. So my understanding is that this is already well underway and in progress. We had to wait for feedback from a customer there. And then the new bug work. So we have, unfortunately, the IP addresses are no longer saved for incoming service pings in the version app. This is probably an infrastructure issue because we didn't really change anything regarding the code there. At the same time, the whole infrastructure around the version app changed. So it's very likely that the IP addresses are somehow getting filtered out along the way. Still, we have to kind of verify that and then communicate with infrastructure to make sure that these come in again. These IP addresses, just for everyone's understanding, are used to make to kind of geolocate the not individual users, but the instances that GitLab is running on. And so that's data that is actually also used inside of GitLab. So it would be important to re-enable this feature. Then we have DangerBot that needs to be reconfigured, that it actually warns people if they try to remove metrics files. So that actually happened, and we were lucky last time that someone kind of already knew about product intelligence and pinged us manually when someone tried to remove some metric files, which shouldn't happen. But now, ideally, we configure DangerBot to automatically check this. And then the last one is also another bug with the version app. We had this incoming that sometimes the Git version isn't as we expect it to be in the JSON for a service ping, for a manually sent service ping, or manually uploaded service ping. And since we cannot really change, or at least easily change, the systems of our customers and the way they send the service ping, we have to make sure that we kind of also can handle a malformed Git version string and handle the version app that way, handle that in the version app as well. All right. Are there any questions around those issues? Any overall questions towards the milestone? Anything that doesn't make sense? Anything that you're missing that you feel like should be there but isn't? Okay, cool. All the better. I think that should give each and every one of us enough things to do. And if we can get all of this done, that would be actually a huge step forward in a lot of the directions at the same time. Just to re-mention it, we have the Jitsu to Snowplow conversion, we have the new unified tracking API, and then also the fact that we can get rid of known events. So achieving all of those would be a huge step forward. If you're not sure which one of the new issues you should pick up, normally they should be ranked in order already here, or also on the board. If not, if there's still something unclear, feel free to reach out to me at any point in time, and I'll try to help you.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
you say that they are prioritized, they're ordered by priority, but we have 3 lists. Yeah. That's my question, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try. I'm trying to. It's kind of tricky, but I'm trying to keep the board, like the actual board, kind of more prioritized towards what is actually the most important thing. Apart from that, it's normally it kind of figures itself. Also, it's kind of fine if you see that the first part issues from, I don't know, feature work are already taken up, then you can take one of the maintenance items or one of the bug items. So in general, we try to keep like a, I think, 60-30-10 split of the different, so 60% feature work, 30% maintenance work, 10% bug work. And I think you can keep that also in mind for your own distribution of things. So if you, for example, for you, Jonas, you're mainly working on a feature with the prototypical documentation, the unified event framework. It will probably make sense to kind of balance that out with a smaller maintenance issue, while you're also working on that, and not kind of do multiple features at once.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I think there's only one more item in the in the agenda. That's just kind of to call it out. I think Mikolai already added himself, but also going out to anyone else. We have the on-call schedule that all backend engineers should be part of. And April is looking a bit empty still. If people don't add themselves, then I think Sam Beckham is the engineering manager on call for the next month. He's gonna start distributing. So it's always better, I think, probably to kind of add yourself first, because then you can rather choose which shift to take than waiting for one to get assigned to you. Right.
Can you read about what it's entire what you have to do when you're on call?
There's a longer there's some documentation around what you have to do. I would assume that also for backend engineers there's maybe some training. I actually don't know before you can be an on-call engineer. I have to check that. But there is documentation. I can link it afterwards in here around how the whole process works, what the different roles are, because there's always an incident manager on call also. That's something where I'm currently going through the training, and then a backend engineer on call. Yeah, so there's a lot of written down documentation around what the role entails and when you can and should start taking those shifts. And then I think also it depends a bit on the country for which shifts you are even eligible, because some countries you cannot be added for a weekend shift or any kind of shift that's outside of your working hours.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything we missed? Anything that we still should talk about that's not on the agenda? Right. If not, then thanks a lot, and hopefully see a bunch of you in the social call. See ya, everyone.
Bye.